Today we're making crock pot Marry Me chicken, and I've actually made this several times before. I've made it on the stovetop. I've made it, I think it was a one-pot dish that we made. I've made it in the oven. I've also made it in the crock pot before. We are gonna change up the method a little bit today. Maybe not necessarily the recipe, but the way that I've made it in the past to help the sauce be a little bit more creamy. So follow me here, stick with me because it's kind of experimental, but in my head, I do feel like the process of this is gonna make it come out even better than we've had it in the past, and it's always very good. Here in my crock pot, I have 2 large chicken breasts. I've cut them in half this way. Okay, so we cut through them to make them a little bit thinner. Now I'm gonna add a few different things, and then after this cooks for about 3 hours, we'll add in some other stuff. So I've got these sun-dried tomatoes here, and it's about a half jar. I didn't realize that I had these in there. So we're gonna go ahead and use these. I'm not even gonna drain off the oil. I'm just throwing in the sun-dried tomatoes here. And I mean, I guess overall, we're probably gonna use about a half cup or so. You could cut these up a little bit if you want, completely up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and just finish off this jar. This is gonna be a lot of sun-dried tomatoes for this, but if I don't use all of them, then we're gonna be left with like 3 sun-dried tomatoes, and that seems silly. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of this oil rather than using any other kind of oil. And there's some really good flavoring in here too. So we're just adding that to the chicken for the cooking process. And like I said, feel free to cut those up a little bit as well. Now I've got 3 cloves of garlic here. We're gonna mince that and add it. Okay, for the cooking part, I'm adding some salt here. We wanna make sure that this has good flavor. Obviously there's already some stuff in there just with the sun-dried tomatoes and the garlic. Okay, so just like that. And you know what? Let me just get this garlic spread around just a bit. Kind of moving everything about, making sure that everything's gonna be getting good flavor while this cooks. Now I'm gonna add in just about a 1/4 cup of bone broth. Chicken bone broth is what I'm using. Use whatever your preference is. I'm gonna cook this on low because they're chicken breasts. You really don't wanna cook it for that long because then they just overcook and it's just not that good. So we're gonna start about 2 to 2.5 hours on low. Then I'm gonna come back, I'll set a timer. I'm gonna come back, check on them, and potentially at that point make up our sauce that's gonna go on top of these. I highly suggest you don't cook chicken breasts on high. Even if you have a shorter amount of time, you'll be really surprised, especially if you cut them in half this way like I do, how quickly chicken breasts will cook up in the crock pot and how quickly they will get overdone. So let's just go ahead, set this on here. And this is going to be on low for 2.5 hours or so. Okay, it's been about 2.5 hours. This is looking really good. I think the chicken is almost cooked at this point, or it actually might be close to done. So we have quite a bit of liquid in here, right? This happens every time. You guys know we talk about it almost every single time we make a crock pot meal. Now, I am making rice to go with tonight's dinner. So what I'm gonna do is pull a lot of that liquid out because the sauce that we're gonna make to put back in here and just cook up for about 30 minutes or so, I want it to be nice and saucy. I don't want it to be liquidy, but we're gonna pull out because there's a lot of flavor in here and add it to the rice and cook the rice in bone broth and the flavor that we have in this broth. So I'm just going to tilt this and just add it to the rice. Add all of that really good liquid. It's gonna give amazing flavor to the rice as well. Okay, let me just check this. The chicken's kind of sticking together, so I wanna separate it. So we have these individual pieces. Smells really good. There we go. Okay, so I've got my individual pieces here. Now let's make up the rest of the sauce that is gonna go in here. So I've got some heavy cream. Let's do about a cup of heavy cream. I'm adding in some onion powder, maybe half teaspoon or so. I'm gonna add in some thyme, about a teaspoon. And some oregano, same thing, about a teaspoon. Okay. I'm also gonna add in some freshly grated or shredded Parmesan cheese. You can use whatever your preference is, but we just always get the big blocks of it and shred it up ourselves. I am using in between 1/4 and 1/2 cup, but you know, use whatever your preference is. This is the good stuff right here. So we're gonna take this, pour it all over that, and then let this kind of cook down. The cheese will melt. It's gonna be so good. All right, so we're looking at about 30 more minutes or so. I've started the rice. This will just kind of sit here and then we'll be ready to serve. So easy. It is really pretty when you garnish with basil, so we'll probably do that. This is called Marry Me Chicken. I think we've actually had it not in the crock pot, and we've also had it in the crock pot, but I went with a little bit of a different method this time with the heavy cream. So I saved that till later and put it in at the very end so that it wouldn't be very soupy, it'd be more saucy.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good idea. So, so sun-dried tomatoes,
sun-dried tomatoes,
olives.
Basil. There's no olives.
That's just sun-dried tomatoes.
Sun-dried tomato, basil, oregano.
And what, like cream of mushroom or something like that? Okay, all right. Let's see.
It's actually a really simple recipe.
I love sun-dried tomatoes.
Yeah.
I could put that sauce all over it.
Yeah, definitely. The sauce is really good. I only cooked this chicken for about 3 hours total, like on low 3 hours, which is good because you will overcook. Like I said before, you will overcook chicken breasts if you cook them too long in the crock pot.
Yeah.
So if this was thighs, honestly, you could leave those in there all day long and not even worry about it. Also, I don't know if I mentioned, I had to change my shirt because I washed dishes and it literally looked like I was in a water balloon fight. So that is why I'm dressed differently. But it's very good. If you like sun-dried tomatoes, this is definitely a good one.
Yes.
You could add Kalamata olives. Obviously, it's not the same recipe if you do that, but the really good flavors there too. Our verse today comes from Proverbs 19:17. Whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deed. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. This was so delicious. It also looks really beautiful on the plate, but it requires minimal effort. And we all know we love meals like that. Things that are so good, but you don't have to stand in there for hours and hours and hours. Hope you guys are having a great week. I'll see you soon.